Is your ego your amigo, or are you battling its extremes? We're going to delve into that today, and what ego means for a successful creative life. Prepare for metaphorical nonsense. Hello, I'm Eva. I'm starting a new life alongside my daughter's new life because she's a baby. A life of creativity and courage and a well-behaved ego, hopefully. To match the metaphor of this video, I thought I'd draw some swords. So here's an illustration of the sword in the stone and Excalibur being taken back by the Lady of the Lake, a story of swords. For those of us who are trying to create art publicly or anything publicly, our egos are probably double-edged swords. We're balancing ballerinas on point and in full spin on the sword's flat edge. Tilt too far, falter slightly in either direction, and we run the risk of nicking ourselves, or worse, slicing ourselves in half. Then it's bye-bye ballet. Some of us don't even know there is a sword. We're just clambering around and slicing ourselves and others to bits without meaning to, but without trying to understand how it keeps happening either. So nearly as bad as the next group. Those who do know it's there, but take it and whoosh it around willy-nilly without a thought for the people that might get caught in its cutting swing. Why? Because it's fun, maybe? Because power is the ultimate goal? I don't know. I'm not a psychopath. But back to those of us expressing our creativity publicly, the ballerinas trying not to get sliced in half by either edge of the ego sword. Either way we fall, it does the same damage to our character. You need ego to be the ballerina in the first place, to express, to create, or to just stay alive. But those extremes are detrimental. Do you know yours? Let me show you mine. I used to think I was somehow a better person if I hated myself, as if it kept me grounded and modest. I know, it's completely nuts. This way of being renders us completely useless in the world, because we don't do anything, we don't try anything, except chastise ourselves in different ways. If I can't do anything well, I'll do this one thing brilliantly. Excuses, excuses, thinly veiled excuses. All of that very messed up ego, which could be confused with extreme modesty, is actually self-obsession. Those that I saw as beautiful and successful, the people I envied, those were the ones that were obsessed with themselves. Perception is a funny thing, and it's often a very ignorant thing. But here's the real thing. They might love themselves, but that doesn't mean they're self-obsessed. I clearly was, though. In fact, true self-love is altogether different. This was a lesson of a lifetime, because it meant the excuses died. It meant I was simply a coward of the worst kind, a self-victimizing, self-obsessed coward. It meant I had to face the truth of myself, and therefore challenge myself at long last. All of this low self-worth that allows excuses and toxic judgment of others may seem like a small, pathetic, weak ego, but it's actually a huge ego, just as inflated as those who brag and live their lives as if they are incredibly special and entitled to everything. And those are the two edges of the ego sword, both as harmful as the other, and both razor sharp due to some sort of hurt or neglect in the past. Both of them are coming from low self-worth. In these extremes, we alienate ourselves because we live in obsession with our ego sword, because it's pierced right through us. We're walking around with this sword in our gut. Everyone can see it most of the time, and maybe sometimes it's only us that can't see it. All we know is we're bleeding everywhere, and we're going on and on and on about how we've got this uncomfortable feeling in our stomach, obsessed by it. And because we're not doing anything about it, eventually everyone gives up on us. So then we go on and on and on about how no one understands us, no one cares. We're not using the sword to protect others or create wonderful topiary in the castle gardens because we won't recognize it for what it is. We won't even seek the right things to heal us if we pull it out of our gut. That sword is our sword. We'll live by our sword and die by our sword, alone and with nothing to show for it, no accomplishments, and still wondering why. When you martyr yourself for yourself, you're not a hero. So bring that darned ego sword into the light. Get to know it. It's yours after all. When you've used it incorrectly, or when you find it stopping you from doing anything at all, place it in front of you and observe the blood on the blade and the blood splatter around you. How did you use it to your detriment or to others? What wound were you subconsciously trying to avoid or inflict, and why? Were there any threats at all? Or were you and your sword the only real threat? Say to your sword, listen, I need you beside me to go on living my life and living it bravely, but we need to understand each other if we're going to make anything of this life. So let me wipe you clean, put you back in your sheath. Like a knight, I will use you, sword, for noble reasons, but if I make a martyr of myself for my own sake, if I lose control again, I will accept it, and I'll talk to you directly, and we'll decode and clean up all over again and be more careful next time. If you're conscientious, this is just going to be a lifelong balancing act, trying to understand why you do what you do and how it affects things. When it comes to creating and art, it's something you have to be aware of. Or maybe not. That elusive flow state is probably not too conscious of how our ego is interrupting it, because the ego just isn't. Rather, it just is. And maybe that's where we want to arrive at. Just being honest to our life itself, rather than our supposed identity, which is often very superficial when we chip away at it. When we have that awareness of being unimportant in the grand scheme of things, but definitely not insignificant, when we know that life is creative, it is creativity in its ultimate form, it is its cause, its being, its own reason and result, maybe then we can put the sword in the sheath and just carry on, fearless and humble, modest and confident, ready for anything. If you have any advice on how to balance our egoic extremes, I'd love to hear it. It is a forever battle, because I'm not enlightened. Thanks so much for being here. Love and peace and bye.